Welcome back to Just Saying, the podcast where we talk about parenting, purpose, and the messy middle of life. Today's guest is someone who brings together two words I love, entrepreneurship and personal growth. David Osk is an entrepreneur, inventor, whose products have landed in over 3,700 retail locations, including Home Depot and Lowe's. But beyond the hustle, he's now helping people rediscover their true selves as the lead coach for True North Resiliency Program. He's here to talk about grit, burnout, identity, and why we should never start with why, but with who. And he might just sing us a little ditty. Did I tell you he's a vocalist? Yeah, pretty cool. Let's dive in. Hey friends, I'm here with entrepreneur and inventor, David Osk. Welcome to the show, David.
Hey, what's up? I'm glad to be here with you.
What's up? I'm happy. I've never had an inventor on my show, so I'm excited. What's
Well,
funny is because when you're little, you always think of inventions, but then you never follow through. You're like, yeah, whatever. There's a lot of thought involved and a lot that goes into inventing. Did you get a patent on what you did? So
I did.
that's like. Let's get to it because that is really, really hard because I did it in college. We had to do like a mock-up inventing a product, and we did. I actually invented something that actually could be marketed to hospitals. And if I tell you, then I'd have to kill you. No, I'm just teasing.
Right.
But because my husband's a physical therapist, and he's like, you know what we need? Because my husband has that inventor mind, but it's a hard process. That's why they make you do it in college as a task. Like, okay, you got to invent a project, and then from conception to the end, you got to. And it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is.
Tell me, let's rewind a little bit and tell me a little bit about your product. Or how did you first start becoming an inventor and an entrepreneur? How'd that start?
I'll be honest. I do think there are some personalities, right, that are just wired to be a bit more curious about, creating stuff, that kind of thing. So I think that really early on in my life, I don't know, I just kind of the way that I am. So for the longest time, twofold. I started hanging out with some people that, just kind of that thought differently. I mean, there's a difference between an entrepreneur and someone who owns their own business. And you
Mhm.
know what I mean? We often lump those two things together, entrepreneur, business owner.
Yeah, you know what? I like to build the business, but I don't necessarily like to run it. And I
Yeah,
don't necessarily like to do the business part of it all. I
yeah,
like to be the creative part. I'll figure out how to do the breaks and do all, because I'm in a preschool. I'll figure out how to do all kinds of stuff, but then I want somebody else to implement it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think when I think of entrepreneur too, I think of somebody who probably is a bit of a creative, somebody who has multiple revenue streams, kind of this idea of irons in the fire, that kind of thing. So I was always drawn to that type of a personality, and just honestly, I felt like they kind of went rogue, like what do you mean? Uh, what gives you the right to have, four different revenue streams and have margin in your time, and and how did you pull that off? Because I think it's kind of everybody's, not everybody, but so many people kind of have that dream, like what would it look like to not be tied to a desk or someone else telling you what to do, or have a bit of margin. And so it's something that I didn't think was possible for a long time. And then, it's kind of like when your radar is up, those things tend to present themselves. So, my product is called the Stat Guard Plus. It's
Okay.
the first in the world thermostat guard with a combination lock. So it goes over thermostat, so people don't jack around with the thermostat, right? We all get the thermostat wars, whether it's your home or office or, church or restaurant or whatever it is. Everybody wants their own temperature, and whoever's paying that bill, doesn't appreciate the whole, musical chairs with the thermostat. So I was actually working in facilities management with a large retail chain, and of course we use stat cards everywhere because everybody's, messing around with it. The problem though was everybody had a hard time keeping up with that tiny key. So one day, my brother-in-law, so technically it was not my idea. My brother-in-law called me one day because he was working for banks in South Florida that owned foreclosed properties, and they would rehab them and get them back for sale. And of course, the real estate agents, when they showed the house, wanted it nice and cold and all that kind of thing, and it just was costing the banks a fortune. Well, they installed stat guards, and of course they had keys, and they kept losing the key. So he called me one day and he goes, "Where do I get a stat guard with a combo lock?" He said, "Nobody can keep track of these keys, and I'm constantly having to rip this thing off the wall, fix
Can I
the
ask you a
wall, paint
question?
the wall." And yeah,
Can I ask?
yeah, yeah,
Okay, so my blonde moment. That guard, is that just like the little plastic thing that goes over the top of the thing where that so nobody can get into it? And
yeah,
yes, there's a key that goes in there. Usually it's stuck right in there
yeah,
so
well,
that
yeah,
people don't lose it, right? But
yeah,
that defeats the purpose of sticking it in there and leaving it
just
there
leaving it right.
or leaving it on top or somewhere close by because they're just gonna and let me just say, the temperature wars is the thing. I worked in an office, and because all the men wear suits and they want to, and they're moving around and they're drinking coffee and they're like, all the testosterone, the men do.
Yeah,
Um, they want it like freezing cold. And so then the girls are like, bringing a blanket, you know, because their legs are
absolutely.
freezing cold. And then a lot of companies do not allow like space heaters under your desk because of it's a
It's a
safety
fire
thing.
hazard, and yeah, and it
Right,
costs
and so
more, and
women have to suffer and the men get whatever they want, no offense, but it's kinda BS, but I just thought I'd interject that. My own little deep
yeah,
thought.
yeah, and I mean, I mean, most
And let me
people,
just say, I actually like it freezing cold all the time. My house is probably set at 67 right now because this will air, like, I think in, May, but it's October right now, and but that's why we're drinking coffee because mommy got a little cold, and so, because I normally don't like to drink when I'm doing an episode because I kinda think y I'm gonna get off task here for a second, but let me just say, chewing and sipping and slobbering in your ear is the most grossest thing.
right?
It is like my biggest pet peeve. My husband's super
Yeah,
tall. Like, I mean, he's 6'6" and a
yeah,
half,
yeah, yeah.
and he towers over me. And if he's chewing something and he's in my ear distance because he's right above me, I freak out. I'm like, oh my god, go somewhere else, please. I can't even with the chewing because chewing is my biggest pet peeve. So, anyways, I try not to do any of that when I'm on when I'm on an episode, but I will mute out my slurps while
That's
I
right.
drink my coffee because I got a little bit of a cold. Sorry, I do like to go off on a tangent sometimes. So let's rewind back to where we were. You were talking about you and your brother, you were discussing. He's like, "Hey, dude, like, what the hell? Why are we using just this key? This is not like. Let's get into the current century.
Yeah.
Did you guys think of like a digital one or what? How did it continue your story, please?
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, well, it is digital, right? Because it's a code. It's a it's just a simple combination lock. So he basically, long story short, is we looked for a stat guard with a code, couldn't find one, and he called me one day. He goes, "Man, I think we need to start a business." So we kind of started launching this thing together. He got really busy in construction. I ended up buying him out. And then a few years later, got into Home Depot, and a couple of years ago, got into Lowe's, and we've been, I guess, kind of I should say,
You're like
not
in
a,
like 3,700 stores, are you not? Like you're in
yeah,
like a legit a grip stores. Like you've
yeah.
made it.
Well, thank you. And it's been a one heck of a journey to get there. I'll tell you that. It's being an entrepreneur and being your own boss, and it's not for the faint of heart. And I've made a ton of mistakes, and let fear slow me down and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's definitely a battle to get there. And but you know what? Once you kind of hit a certain level, you're like, okay, I got a bit of confidence here. What else is possible? So in fact, I just licensed a new product called the Lockbox Pro that has a combination lock and a key option to. It's actually it was Supco, but they got bought out by Linux a couple of months ago. So anyway, that's for the pro channel, so contractors and things like that. The other one is in retail and so on. But yeah, it's just a simple what do they say, a better mousetrap type situation, right?
Right. Right. And also because it's not just that, but like people are changing, millennials and you got Gen Zers and what used to be easy for us now is a little more complicated.
It
So
can be, yeah.
you've got a new set of people out there and they want it super, super easy. And, so, yeah, you got to reinvent the mousetrap for the current people that are in our society. Okay. So you had some pitfalls, you had some barriers, you had some things you had to overcome, and you did all those things as an entrepreneur because that's what we do, right? We take on the risk and then we work out the problem, and whatever we do, we work really hard at it. You work hard until you just feel at the end of the day that you did all that you could in that day, and then you rest for a minute, you sleep, you get back up, and you start all over again. And you work hard, you continue to work hard, you don't let up. So you taking your principles that you've learned along the way, and your struggles and some of the things that you were able to, like I said, overcome, and you turned it into a coaching program. Is that right?
You
True
know,
North?
it's
Or
interesting. Yeah, so I'm part of a large mastermind group and an entrepreneurial group called ISI, and it's been a really great, yeah, great experience to meet a lot of people. One of the people that was in my mastermind group is a guy named Dr. Andy Garrett. He's a clinical psychologist. And it was really fascinating as I was kind of developing the business and honestly developing as you know, a, a man, a business owner, a dad, a husband. It was amazing how I started learning a lot of, things from him that there were kind of bedrock type stuff that you base your life on and tools that you can put in your belt to, navigate certain things. Um, he calls his business he mainly works with corporations, True North Culture. I think it's truenorthculture.org. But it's the same type of principles, that really help people anchor, or how about this, to course correct, when you get up in the morning and you're feeling like you're in the weeds or you're, one ditch to the next. Where's the center of the road for you? What are you really basing, your actions on, and what are you anchoring to? Well, words like authenticity and identity and so on are so misunderstood in our culture, and they almost seem kind of woo-hoo kind of nonsense. And they're actually quite practical. And when somebody asks you the right questions and the right progression, it's amazing how you can dial in on, who you are uniquely, the things that you value most of all, and anchor to those things, as opposed to just licking your finger and, wondering which way the wind is blowing, and people pleasing, and, all those things that just end up being really, really exhausting. So I started doing some coaching around that. I'm writing a book for dads. In fact, I was really excited yesterday. I finally sent it off to my editor, and it's been a 2-year process. The book is called
what
The
an
Dad.
exciting stage you're at. I love that
Yeah.
stage. It's like you feel like a big old weight has been lifted because you do
Yeah.
like, okay, so I wrote a book and I know a little bit about it, but I'm currently writing another one, a
Okay.
romance novel, and I'm on chapter like 26. So I'm getting close to
Okay.
the end.
Yeah.
But I know I'm going to have a crap ton of edits and drafts to go through. So I have another half a year to a year before I can get to your stage. It is one thing to get it out on paper and get it done. And then it's another thing to reread your book over and
Yeah.
over and
Oh, I know.
over again. Oh, my Lord.
Yeah.
It is a process.
It is. And so this one is for fathers and sons, and it's called The Guardians of Grit. And I really want to help people understand grit in a new way. And just, yeah, I feel like it's one of those things that's so tied to who I am and my unique mission in life. And it just, yeah, that's really, by the way, one of the things that I learned from Dr. Andy is, when someone says I'm passionate about something, the word passion comes from the word suffer. And I gotta say, and you get it, 2 years working on a book. I mean, I'm willing to suffer for this, right? It is
Okay.
borderline agony when you sit down and you're like, I've got writer's block, and what does this look like, and so on. And at the same time, to push through that because at the end it's worth fighting for. I mean, this is something that I feel very intrinsically motivated to do, and yeah, it's been a big
What
process.
motivated you though to put it in a book though? I mean, did you ever always thought that you might write a book? Is that kind of your bucket list? Like, oh, I thought maybe one day I might, and then you just thought of, well, this is a good idea, I'm doing it, and just because
Yeah,
entrepreneurs, we're doers, so
yeah.
like,
Truth of the matter is I don't think I really even thought about it until the last few years. And I actually, it's oddly enough, moved to Nashville to do music, and I've recorded 3 records and still sing. So by the way, this is kind of a fun one, little curveball, but 2 months ago I released "Open Arms" by Journey, but I did it in English and Italian. So it's on all the various streaming platforms. But Um, I
Okay, so wait. So okay, so you can look it up. Can you look up your under your name, or how do you look
yeah.
up? Okay, so everybody, his name is Osk, but it's spelled like ask, ASK. Just so you know, David, and we all know David, ASK. Go look up his music, and I'm curious. I'm curious. Do you sing good? You probably do, huh?
You know,
I mean, you're
I'm
doing
gr-
Journey, like wow.
I'm really grateful. I've been asked to sing for the governor many times and for the symphony center, and I've sung at. Actually, I'm looking at a non-disclosure agreement on my wall. It was a bucket list thing that I sang at a particular golf course that I can't mention for our members. And um,
Wow.
anyway,
How
I
exciting.
mean, mm,
You're like an all-around what do you call them? An army Swiss Army knife. You've got
okay,
like
yeah,
everything coming out in every different direction. You're like, I'm just gonna
uh,
try I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm just gonna do that. I
uh,
love that.
well, thanks. And, it's weird. I'll be honest with you. For a long time, I felt like a real misfit because conventional wisdom, and I think there's a lot of wisdom in it, is focus on something and get really good at it and so on. And I'm not sure if I have a low attention span or my personality is just wired a bit more broad, but
You
I
sound like
love
me.
variety. I love variety, and
Yeah.
I'm grateful to have stumbled into some things and been surrounded by people that really helped me along the way, and to do the variety of things. So yeah, I'm actually working on releasing early next year the full Italian version of Open Arms.
So are you is Ask an Italian? Are you just know the language, or are you Italian? I don't know the origin. I'm so sorry.
No, no, no. Oddly enough, it's yeah, Ask is a town in Norway. So my whole heritage is Norwegian, and my in fact by oddly enough, I did that ancestry test, and I'm 89% Norwegian. And
Wow.
but I studied enough Italian in college to be able to sing it pretty much.
What did you go to college for, if you don't mind me asking?
I was a vocal major.
A vocal major. Okay. So did you think that singing was gonna be your thing? Like that was gonna be your I'm gonna be a star.
Yeah, I
No,
did.
I'm not trying to make fun of it though, because
Oh no,
I know that the talent in singing is like, I wish I had that, you know? Like, I think I can sing, but I'm pretty sure I can't. But, I mean, I sang in the church choir when I was little. That doesn't really count, but
no. I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah. Truth of the matter is I really wanted to do music full time, and when I first got here, and I think you know it's an interesting thing that life is hard, and the income is uncertain, and it's such a battle to to yeah to get out there and do it, and you're gone all the time, and of course I've tasted some of that. I've done quite a bit of that, and of course when you have kids and you get married, and your priorities start to
for a
shift.
man too, but for a man, it's a little bit different because, you think, "Oh, I've gotta be the provider, and I've gotta
Ah,
be present and be
yep,
around," and all those pressures. I mean, I guess it would be very difficult, you know? That's why the young people are, rocking it, you know? Because they don't
totally.
got any ties. They don't have their tentacles and everything
Well, and I've
of
and I've
life.
seen so many friends, honestly, who, sacrificed their family on the altar of being famous, and that they didn't get either of them, right? They didn't become famous,
It's a
and
gamble.
they ruined their whole lives, and I just was not willing to do that because, of course, I value my wife and kids a whole lot more than, some music career, so
I love that. I love that you said that. In fact, when my husband and I, when we were dating, we worked in a nightclub. He was a bartender. I was a cocktail server. I'm like, and I go, let's go out to breakfast with everybody. And he's like, this is when I first kind of was first meeting him. He goes, no, no, no. He goes, I got to go pick up my daughter, and she means more to me than all of you. Like all of
love
you
it.
yahoos is what he said. And then the first thing in my mind was, I'm going to marry that man.
Yeah,
I just it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, I'm supposed to marry you. Like, we're gonna get married. And I told him we're gonna get married, and we did. No, I'm just teasing. I didn't tell him. He asked. I'm just messing. But still, I love that when people say, like, they put their family first. I think that's amazing and that's special. Makes you a good catch. And there should be a lot of men like you out there, but there's not.
well, I appreciate that, and honestly, it's one of those things where you're never ever going to, you know, uh, interview someone in their 60s and 70s and have them say anything to the effect that they wish they didn't have a family, right?
Right.
It's just the
Right.
opposite. There's so many
We should
things
all
that
have more kids. We should have more kids than we can afford. Just saying.
yeah,
You know,
and yeah,
populate this world.
Yeah, and regret's a tough thing, and I'm grateful again. I was raised right. I'm surrounded by a lot of people who help me anchor to the right stuff and what's true, and
So tell me a little
I'm
bit about,
great.
if you don't mind me diving into a little bit to your future. But your book that you just sent off, is it about, so it's about fathers and sons, you said?
Yeah, yeah,
And do you dive in a little bit about like the dad's responsibility to support the family and but still trying to connect with your son and, showing him kind of the way, like probably you were shown, you were raised right, right? You're raising your child right. Like
yeah,
I
yeah,
can see that being a real important book. And nowadays, well,
yeah.
how old, can I ask you a question? How old is your son? Is he a
Well,
little older now?
he's 20. Yeah, my daughter is 18. My
Gen
son
Zer?
is 20. So he's
A Gen Zer. My son is a Gen Zer too. He's 24.
okay.
It's a my son. I mean, you would think that he would see his mom working really, really hard
Yeah.
and his dad working really, really hard, that would somehow rub off. No. And I don't know what I did wrong. I mean, I was a stay-at-home mom. I mean, you know what I did wrong is, and I say this often, I'm a helicopter parent.
Mm,
And I hovered over my kids to make sure that they were safe and that they had everything they needed, and it was at a detriment to their development. But I'm saying that now, so people out there, stop doing it,
yeah.
because we have
Yeah.
a world full of Gen Zers that have been hovered around. Woo woo woo. You're hovering around them. Let them skin their knee. Let them figure it out on their own. Just saying.
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting. So obviously the book is Guardians of Grit, and it's so what does it really mean to be a guardian, and really what is grit? We often think that this idea of just I'm gritty, which means I'm going to bear down and just muscle through it. Like I'm stronger than anybody around me. Well, my buddy Greg Yates said one time, he said, David, my biggest fear is that I'm successful at the wrong things.
Mm,
So, any, you know, ding dong can work really hard and bear down on something, right? I mean, it's so Angela Duckworth wrote the book Grit. I think it released a few years ago. And, she just explains it quite simply, this idea of um, doing something over a long period of time because, it's worth fighting for. So what's fascinating though is that might be one day, right? If you're gritty and you're running a marathon, right, that might be because you had a goal and you know that you're raising money for this cause or whatever it is.
right.
I mean, and but here's the interesting thing is it extrinsic, versus intrinsic? What's your motivation? And I think it's really, really important to understand that if you don't have this idea of self awareness and what you value and get really clear on who you are and what gives you goosebumps and what breaks your heart and just all of that stuff that makes you you. What's fascinating is you might be bearing down on something that you don't really care about because your dad might care about it, or Joe Rogan, or you know what I mean, like you might get involved in some political cause or something like that because you don't even know who you are, you don't know what you truly care about. And the absence of that plumb line is honestly, it'll drive people insane. I mean, you will really start doing really wild things to remove uncertainty with regards to your identity. I mean, we see it in our culture. I mean, there's some severe things people are doing, to find that identity. Well, here's what's fascinating is if you, and this is something that, Dr. Andy helped me with, is if you start asking people, questions like, for instance, we do, and when I coach people, I walk them through a core values assessment. But a lot of people do a core values assessment, right? That's a whole corporate thing. And this, these are our core values. Well, they slap them on the wall and nobody reads them again, right? It's just, okay, we hope everybody subscribes to honesty and integrity and, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But if you really drill into your own, for instance, in the English language, there's, I don't know, roughly 80 or so core values, and there's some overlap, in the language. But if you and I were to do a core values assessment and you just, put a check mark next to the values that you know, resonate with, and then and you narrow that down to 20, narrow that down to 10, narrow that down to 5, your top 5, the things that you prioritize in your heart are going to be different from mine. And you start coupling that with convictions, which is different than a value. And most people lump those things together, right? Convictions are, what do you believe is right and wrong and why? What do you base that on? Um, and if is it just your feelings? Because you might feel something different tomorrow, right? And that alone can cause a lot of chaos. Well, what type of a virtuous impact do you want to have? So values, convictions, virtues, they're different, and a lot of people just kind of lump it into, I'm going to be a good person and I'm going to work hard. Well, if you have a really vague understanding of those things, guess what? You're going to have a really vague understanding in life of who you are. Your sense of fulfillment is going to drop. Your sense of joy is going to drop because you've not assigned meaning to those things. So one of the things that I do, that I'm trying to really, get across in the book is in kind of an inspirational way is, you know, for instance, I love this idea that, fathers would hold a mirror up to their sons and say, "Hey, do you see what I see?" And as their son starts to develop and starts to talk about these things, that the dad, right? We talk about raising kids. Well, what does that mean? It's causing them to rise into their uniqueness, right? It's for the common good. We've got a fingerprint that's unique, a DNA that's unique, and our souls are so unique. And if you start to validate, name, call out, call forth, and get behind whatever that young man is, decides he wants to be about, especially after you ask him the right questions, it's amazing how he starts to feel what? Genuine. I mean, his identity, he's identified, wrote those things down that make him authentic. And by the way, I was speaking at an event here a few weeks ago or a few months ago in Jamaica with some high level executives. And I walked into the room. I mean, these are master's and doctorate level. And I asked them, does anybody know where we get the word authenticity from? And of course, it was crickets. And guess what? It comes from the word author. And 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 so here's the funny thing, right? And this is a really easy thing to say. We don't choose our skin color. We don't choose our eye color. We don't choose our taste buds. We don't choose when we were born. We don't choose into what family, what time in history. But guess what? We don't even choose our own personalities. We are so hardwired, and those of us who have kids, especially, we can tell immediately within just a matter of weeks and months, they are very different from their sibling. And
But none of my
kids,
kids are the same, for
well,
sure.
and this is getting a little heady or maybe philosophical, but I think it's quite practical. In fact, kids aren't thinking like us, being I want to be authentic today. They're just doing their deal. And then when life hurts, right? When they get insulted, abused, trauma, whatever happens, then what do? They start to question every bit of that. And they start to play a role based upon approval or disapproval, right? Pleasure versus pain. So if I'm with this person and I say these things, well, that doesn't work. So I guess I'm not going to do that. Or if I'm with this person, they applaud that. Okay, well, hopefully they're applauding something that's beneficial. But you tend to start playing a role as opposed to being yourself. And then psychologists have the term self actualization, right? So when you're in your teens and 20s, you start pushing back and blah blah blah. You get it. But here's the funny thing. Most parents have no clue what that even means and how they're supposed to handle that. And they would just want their kid to get out and work hard and provide for himself and leave me alone. But they feel if their kid is floundering that it's their fault. And you know what? There's some truth there. So how do you help navigate those years for someone to anchor to this is who I am, this is who I'm not, this is what lights me up, this is the cause that I want to fight for, this is the impact I want to have, here are my strengths and how I want to apply those things so that they can start feeling authentic and genuine and natural and run in their lane, as opposed to I'm going to try 25 different things by the time I'm 25 and hope something sticks. And it's
I mean, what do you do
exhausting.
for the kid that has doesn't know? Like, ask him, and you're trying to discern if he's got any kind of goals or any type of
Well,
interest, and he's like, no, you know.
yeah, but here's the funny thing though is that process, and I mean, it's never too late. That process should start when they're 9, and then you start to develop that over time. But here's the funny thing: there's a lot of 30-year-olds that I've coached who have absolutely no clue who they are and why they get up in the morning. And it's amazing, when you again we walk them through this process, right, where they answer a lot of questions, they do a lot of exercises to help them develop that sense of, well, holy smokes, when I do this type of thing, or I say these types of things, I use these types of words, I hang out with these types of people, I have this type of an impact. Gee, my energy rises, right? There's a clue. And it's fascinating when you start following the clues, what somebody can start identifying very quickly. And then they start operating, in a way that's super authentic to them so that they feel resilient and joyful and that kind of stuff, as opposed to imposter syndrome and fear and feeling stuck in comparison.
Imposter
And
syndrome is such a thing, dude. Like,
oh,
everything you start, even when you're writing your book, you're like,
yeah,
"Am I an author? I'm not an author, and I'm gonna submit it, and I'm still not an author." And
I
I
know.
got it published by a publisher, and I say, "Can I now put author on my social media? I mean, am I an author? I don't know." And now that I'm writing another book, I'm thinking like, am I still? Am I like, I don't know. Like, does that make me an author? I don't know. So it's
It's
a
funny.
real
It's funny, by the way. I totally get that. And even still, I've sung on stages with super famous people. I've literally shared the stage with a bunch of famous people. I've sung backup on their records and all kinds of stuff. And people, because I don't do it full time, people ask me, "Are you a professional vocalist?" And even to this day, I still kind of hesitate. And I'm like, wait a second. I live in Nashville,
yeah,
Tennessee, and I've
yeah.
sung on stages all over the world, from Italy to Vienna to the Schermerhorn Symphony Center. And I'm on, various records. I've cut 3 records of my own, and I still get called to do really fun. Of course, I'm a professional, but 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 isn't it funny? It's that headspace. How do you overcome that? Well, it's
Yeah,
so there's twofold. You have to identify all of those things about yourself so you can run in your lane. But guess what? Those things are not activated because you decide. They're activated because you are loved. And that means even at 40 or 50 years old, we were meant to be in community. You're meant to have a band of brothers or a band of sisters. You're meant to have people, your friends and family, of course, your spouse, that that mirrors back to you, hey, I see what you're doing and it's awesome. You're made of awesome. When you do those types of things, it lands really well. Do more of that. That's great. And then you start to, again, it galvanizes your authenticity. It galvanizes your identity. But you can't create that in a vacuum. It's Yes, you have to identify those things, but then to have someone come along and say, Jessica, I absolutely love how you do these podcasts. You make people feel so comfortable. They're fun. They're insightful. You ask great questions. Man, you are so in your lane. And I'm being serious, by the way. So can you imagine if more people did that for one another, as opposed to tear people down and, make stupid comments on Facebook about, it's those people, the people that are, how about this? The people that are not excited for others' successes, they are the most lonely and
right.
sad people you could be with.
I know I hate I can use the word hate. I hate it when I see somebody, like, post something as special, or and then you see, like, people saying really negative things,
Yeah.
and I just when I see that, I make sure that not a friend of mine, and then if they are, I block them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
And it's
need it in my life. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I'm with you. And here's an interesting thing is, I mean, obviously, I think there's times when you really need to protect, who you're influenced by. And by the way, part of the book, is I talk about that because as parents, right, we will go to extreme lengths to make sure our kids don't get caught up in the wrong crowd, because we know full well they will become just like those clowns. And
Right.
but here's the funny thing: we don't do it for ourselves. We're
True.
and it's and so one of the things that I've been, again, this is not my idea. I was introduced to this years ago, but you will become, I think Jim Rohn first said it, but you will become like the top 5 people you spend the most time with. And so I literally started paying to spend time, with people that were winning in marriage, people that were, winning in business, and that I felt like were ethical, good people. And it's amazing how, in especially the last decade anyway, my life has gotten so much better, but it's because those people start rubbing off on me. And
Yeah.
if I have anything wise or anything to say, it is not mine. I'm literally standing on the shoulders of those who've gone before me.
Right. I think that, doing this podcast, I'm connecting with so many different people from all over the world,
Yeah,
France, Australia, Africa. I mean, I have been talking to so many people, and it's so interesting. And um, of all ethnicities and disabilities and authors of every type of genre. I mean, it's getting to be like I love it because it's more like I'm it's just me peeking into somebody's world, but I'm hoping that somebody else wants to be a fly on the wall and that's why they're listening. but
Yeah.
but I'm having a
Powerful.
lot of fun doing it. I mean, I'm getting some self gratification from doing this, but I also want maybe possibly somebody to hear your story and go, man, I could do that. I should surround myself with people that are going to make my life better. Like they take something away from it. And if they do that, then I love that I'm doing this, that I'm putting myself out there because it's scary. I'm not
Yeah.
a 20 something anymore and I'm not, this thin, skinny little, cute girl that I used to be. And it's a little scary putting yourself out there because people can make fun of you. I mean, and
But here's the funny thing. I think I'll be honest. I think there was a season in our culture where some of those whatever aesthetics were valued more than they are now. And then you see people like, I mean, people on American Idol or whatever that look like they just crawled out of a hole. But guess what? If they offer something of value, nobody cares what they look like, right?
right,
Authenticity is just everything. And I think that how about this? Dr. Andy talks about he uses the term authentic exemplar, and he said we all have a few people in our lives that when they walk into the room shifts. The room is different, right? It's wiser, safer, stronger, better, and they seem to transcend. They seem to kind of stand out. And it's not because they're pretty and good looking, it's because their character and their other centeredness is so powerful. They're just, they're not walking into a room with a big question mark inside. They're not wondering how do I fit in here and who can I talk to and I'm afraid. They're walking in wondering, man, I wonder who could use some encouragement right now. They're wondering how I wonder who I can help or connect a dot for. Like the big question mark is gone because they know exactly who they are, what they value, and what mission they're on. And but everybody else is just question mark city, and it's paralyzing. So I think that authenticity is the new superpower. And I think even in the age of AI and everything else, when things are quote unquote fake, you know what? People
right.
are, I think, entertainment. Okay, fine. You're looking at silly videos or something, but when it comes down to bedrock, what am I going to buy? Who am I going to hang out with? People are so starved for real connection, and I think that's gonna be the new industry.
Yeah. And that's why I love what I do on my podcast is just conversations. I do have little questions in case I always tell people blonde moments where I can't think of something to ask.
Yeah,
And I keep them to the side, but I kind of just feel like when people come on, I just want to ask you questions that I think other people might be listening might be asking. And I'm genuinely curious and I want to ask you all kinds of things and sometimes they pop in and out of my head as you talk. So I'm like, "Wait, what was I thinking?" Oh, like
yeah,
we'll bring it back. So yeah, like what you said earlier, you said that like you kind of have your hands in all kinds of different things. Well, you definitely do, like more
yeah,
so than most.
yeah.
But like I feel the same way. Like I work a 9 to 5 job, during the day, and then I do this podcast, and then I do all the editing. I do everything that comes with this.
Wow.
I don't send this out to anybody. I do it all on my own. And I enjoy that because I used to do photography and I love video editing and I've done all the videos for everybody's funeral. Everybody that wants to have a dad has passed away, they come to me, It's always been like that my whole life. And so I enjoy that part of it all I've always wanted to be just a full-time photographer. It's like one of the things I wanted to be like but I did do photography for a little while, but it doesn't really pay the bills and I wasn't marketing myself like I probably should have. But so I have a 9 to 5 job. I do the podcast. I wrote a book recently and it got published. So I'm kind of putting my book out there to people to buy it. It's called, I'll just say it, Bucket List from a Redneck Girl.
Love it.
It's about my crazy life, but it's funny. It's got humor in it and it'll make you cry. It'll make you laugh. It'll make you do
Yeah,
all the things.
yeah, yeah.
Because that's just, I think laughter is really important in life and I try to weave that into everything I do. Even in my romance novel that I'm currently writing, I'm weaving in a little bit of laughter and because you kind of want them to giggle but then you want them, to feel all different ways when they're reading a book. And but I'm saying you said you had your hand in all, but I feel the same way, and I feel as though like I don't know exactly my direction. Like I feel like I'm doing all kinds of stuff, but I just don't know exactly the end point. Like what am I goal? Like what's the goal? I haven't really just established the goal. I'm just doing right now. Like I'm just doing,
You know
and I
what? So here's something. I'll just suggest something, and I think that your listeners would appreciate this. This is nothing new necessarily. This is kind of a psychological hack that really helps people dial in on desired impact. So I would say that if you write your own eulogy, but you do it from a specific person's perspective. So your son's perspective and your husband's perspective, or how about this? When, if you were to say, hey, I've got David Oss coming onto my podcast and he met me one time, what would I want him, if people ask, would you come and speak at Jessica's funeral? What would I want David to say? And,
you might be
and
the only one. No, Susan.
well, but it's an interesting hack. And honestly, it can get really emotional, but that's the whole point. Is if you do that and you're willing to submit to that, I guarantee you're going to come out with values and virtues of the impact that you want to have. And you're going to come out with a much deeper sense of why you're doing anything. And so it's a bit grueling, but I tell you what, it might be the best psychological hack to understand your desired impact.
I am one of those people that has to be in charge of everything. Like, so the clicker at my house, my husband's like, "What are we watching?" Because like he won't turn on the TV. He doesn't even know how to use the dang thing, honestly. And I'm like, I'm like, here, we're gonna watch this. We're gonna watch. Normally it's the news, but whatever. um, and so, but I like to be in charge of. So I always, a lot of people out there now, I've heard, and they just reported on it recently, that a lot of people do want to create their own funeral. Like they want to have it all from beginning to the end and their videos. And this is what I want you to show. And this is what I want you to say. And like, I don't know. I kind of feel like I need to do that for my family because I'm the only one that does that for, when we ever have a death. And I'm the one
Yeah.
that writes it all. I'm the one that does all the videos and the music and the whole thing. And I'm like, who's going to do it for me? I'm like, is that me? Do I really want to go there? Do I really want to be dead in my mind? I don't know. But
It's a funny thing. I do think there's value in contemplating that. And I think that can it be hard and morbid? Absolutely. But, you know, get over it. I think there's so
yeah.
much value that comes from, contemplating life and death and impact. And if we're not doing that on a pretty consistent basis, by the way, do you know who Donald Miller is?
No.
So he is one of the country's foremost experts in marketing. So he does the story brand format. That's kind of his trademark. And what I heard is Donald actually writes his eulogy every morning. And
What?
yeah, and it's but what's fascinating is instant clarity on mission and purpose and motivation. And if I die today, what is it that's the most valuable? Well, guess what? You start doing that, and then you realize I'm participating in some things over here that have absolutely no relevance to my life, and I need to cut that loose. So it's a pretty quick way to clarify your why and get after it. And by the way, I'll make one more comment. One of the things that I'm writing in the book, Simon Sinek wrote the book Start with Why. Great book. He's a wiser man than I am. But I'll I'll kind of use it just to make a point. If you don't know who you are first, your why might be somebody else's. So what's fascinating is if you start to identify, literally write down all of the things that, convictions, values, virtues, goosebumps, eulogy, all the exercises that we walk people through, it's amazing. Then your why starts to make sense. And then you start to realize, man, this is the passionate part of me that I'm willing to suffer for. But if you've not done the work of identifying the who, that why is rather elusive, and it feels, and then you internalize that, right? Well, if something's wrong with me and I'm not as good as other people, and they're so much more passionate and missional focused, and what the heck is wrong with me? Why can't I get my act together? Well, it's because you just haven't identified those things. So I think it's really, really important to get clear on who, then why, and what and how and so on.
Wow. You are very insightful.
Well, thank you.
I bet you're a great coach.
Well, I don't know about that. It's funny. I'm surrounded by a lot of great coaches, and I think more than that, I'm a great friend. I'm kind of one of those
Aw,
guys. I don't.
sound like a good dad too, and
Well,
husband.
I hope
You're all
so.
the things.
I hope so. I'm grateful. My family's amazing. My daughter just graduated high school. She's at Tennessee Tech in Cookeville, and my son's in his second year of college. And my wife works for a private school up the road here, and I'm the richest man on earth. It's pretty amazing.
I know. I feel the same way about my life. My husband, he works really, really hard, and my kids are very special. I love them,
Yeah,
and I got 3.
it's awesome. That's great.
Yeah, and they're getting older. Oh my lord, this is so scary. I want them to be little, but they're not. Okay, so let's make sure that we hit all the points. So you have a book coming out, The Guardian of Grit. Not yet, but keep your ears out. You can go to is it Spotify, right? Or anywhere, music, right? For David Osk, but it's ASK
Thank
people.
you. Yeah, thanks for spelling it. Yeah,
ASK. And then go find his music because he is I can't even say it. My nose is so stuffed. He's a
musician.
musician.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And what is your counseling or coaching? What is your coaching called?
I'll be honest. So if you go to truenorthculture.org, you'll see me there with Dr. Andy, and I do a little bit of one-on-one coaching still. Pretty rare, honestly, but depending on the client.
Let's
But
just say if you really messed up people, he might take you.
yeah, yeah. But I'm really getting it. I'm really honestly
Excuse
getting
me.
more into just doing different speaking events and things like that. And
Okay. So he's a
um,
speaker too. Jeez, you are just a jack. Like I said, you're like a Swiss Army knife. You know what? If you go to my website, justsayin.net, and you go to podcasts and you scroll down and you look for his name, by the time this airs, it'll be on there. And you click on David and it'll take you directly to the website. And so you have another way to access him in case you're forgetting how to spell his name. It's so easy, people.
that's right.
ASA. Oh my Lord. Love the name. You remind me of? It just reminds me of like a magician's name, like David Ask. I don't know
Right.
why. It just comes to
Yeah.
my mind. Not a musician, but a magician, like a
Magician.
magic show, like, sleight of hand. Don't ask me why. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
that's
just,
funny.
I'm a little nuts.
Wow, this is great. I really appreciate you having me on and enjoyed the conversation. And it's my. By the way, can I leave your audience with a quote?
Yes, please.
Is that okay? So and this is largely kind of inspired the book, but Benjamin Disraeli, former Prime Minister of England back in the day, he said, "The greatest good you can do for another is not to share with him your riches, but to reveal to him his own." And
Oh,
I just absolutely love, the idea of, moms and dads looking at their kids and just saying, "Don't you realize you're made of awesome?" And to get really granular about identifying the riches that are so unique inside of their kids. And it's amazing what happens when people do that.
that's right. Put a mirror up to him and say, "Don't you see what I see?" What
Yeah,
do you see? Ask them what they see and say, this is what I see. And that is a really good tool,
yeah,
actually. I'm
yeah.
going to take that. That's a good takeaway. I love takeaways. Okay. Thank you so much, David, for coming on and giving us your take. I mean, you are, like I said, a jack of all trades. You've got your hand in every little pot. I love it. And you were great. You're a gem.
Thank you.
And you're a gem to your family, your children, your audience. I mean, really, you're kind of special. So I'm
Very
really
kind of
lucky
you.
that you.
Thank you. It's very
Well,
kind.
I'm just so lucky that you came on. Really, honestly,
Wow.
my
Thank you.
my little show.
Glad to
This
be
is
here.
right.
Honored to be here.
Well, let's say one day I might make it big, and then I'll be like, one day you're gonna go, I was on that show right in the beginning when she was just a tiny little podcast. No, I'm just teasing. Thank you so much, everybody. Just remember, be kind to one another, take care of yourselves, and take care of your family. Thank you for staying to the end. I appreciate it. Everybody, take care. Bye bye.
Gather around when the sun dips low, talking about the days we used to know. VCR tapes and dial-up tones. raising kids living with achy bones. Leather jackets and big hair days, now it's carpool lines and PTA. Neon dreams turn into schoolyard fights, but our hearts glow in retro nights. We are Gen X, living both worlds. From cassette tapes to a digital world. Parenting now with a nod to the past. The retro love we know will last. We are Gen X, living both worlds. From cassette tapes to a digital world. Parenting now with a nod to the past. The retro love we know will last. We dance to the beats of the boombox sound. Now bedtime stories echo all around. But deep inside we're the mixtape kings, still fighting life with arcade dreams. Feeding families with a pizza slice, telling tales with a side of advice, laughing at the way it used to be.